project in World War I, and I have 9 rooms in total. So we'll start off by MAIN and the assassination. So MAIN stands for militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. So militarism is when a country values military so highly that people believed having a stronger army and more weapons was the best way to this war. This mindset made governments rely more on military leaders for advice and decisions, and sometimes even in political matters. As a result, countries started spending more money on weapons and training soldiers instead of focusing peace or diplomacy. Due to this led to the citizens seeing war as something honorable and brave, making them willing to fight. So the next one is alliances. Alliances were agreements between countries to support each other during conflict. So before the war, there were 2 major alliances known as the Triple Alliance and the Triple Entente. These alliances were meant to keep peace and balance, but instead they increased the effects of war. So when one country was in conflict, and now in our case is Austria-Hungary and Serbia, it turned into one massive war due to the alliances wanting to support each other. Imperialism was a major cause in World War I, as imperialism is when countries try to expand their control by taking over weaker nations to gain land, resources, and power. So before World War I, many European countries like Britain, France, Germany competed to build huge empires in Africa and Asia. So when World War started, this created tension as because countries had more colonies than others. For example, Germany wanted to catch up to Britain, and France, who already had large empires. Lastly, nationalism. Nationalism is when people have a strong loyalty towards their country, sometimes to the point where they believe the nation is the best and better than others. So before World War I, nationalism was already very powerful in Europe, and many people wanted their country to be the most strongest and most successful, which created competition and hatred to other nations. Due to nationalism, this also led to the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. So this assassination was the spark of World War I. He was originally the heir throne to Austria-Hungary, and in July 1914, he was shot in Sarajevo, Bosnia, by a Serbian nationalist named Gavrilo Princip. The assassination was a part of a group that wanted Bosnia to break away from Austria-Hungary and join back to Serbia. And due to the assassination, Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia for the attack and declared war on them. And then due to the alliances between countries, the small conflict spread. So our next room is on propaganda and censorship. So firstly, what is censorship and how it's related to the war? So censorship is when a government organization controls what people are allowed to see, read, or hear. It happens in daily life, like in newspaper, books, movies, social media, or even in everyday conversations. So originally the main goal of censorship is to usually protect people from harmful, sensitive conflict or stop to spread ideas that could cause problem. However, censorship can also be used sensitively. While censorship can keep society safe, it can also create unfair situations where people don't know the full story or can't speak freely. That shows to this letter. So this is one of the letters of the soldiers. During World War I, this soldier letter was heavily censored before they were sent home. The government wanted to make sure no military secrets were revealed, like locations, plans, or information about the weapons. But censorship wasn't only a protecting strategy, it was used to also hide the harsh reality of trench life. If a soldier described terrible conditions, fear, or huge losses, those parts would be crossed out or the entire letter could be stopped because soldiers were trying to wrote it in vague but positive ways even though they were suffering, as they don't want the other people who want to join the military realize how harsh the truth is. So due to this, families who receive letter often don't know how dangerous this is. So over here there are 3 different type of propaganda posters asking them to join the war. So this one is like a British propaganda. This poster is designed to pressure young men to join the army, showing a confident silhouette of another army military guy, and then the text saying your chumps are fighting, and the bottom, why aren't you? This tries to make them feel guilty by suggesting that their friends are already doing and they're on duty, why are not? This was also mainly used in Germany too, as this propaganda poster shows shaking hands with a factory worker, and it clearly sends a strong message. So the soldiers prepared for battle, the workers standing by, and the both men are doing important work. So the translation for this is the red one, I can't pronounce, translate roughly to through work to victory, through victory to peace. This shows want to motivate people on the home front by saying hard work in fact is just as important as fighting. So it also promised that work harder and effort for the war. This poster mainly shows that they should work for front, home, and military. So it's not mainly focused on military, unlike the British poster. Lastly, for France one was a lot darker, as this one shows someone like fighting a huge black eagle. In this case, Germany, as they had a big conflict. So in this poster, we can see they make Germany look threatening and violent, while the French soldiers seem strong and brave. And the translation for this is like national loan, meaning citizens should lend money to help the war. And this propaganda poster shows that they try to make the viewer feel responsible for this and make sure they fund for the war because people are fighting for them. So this also had an effect on home front and women. So during World War I, more women started working on home front because so many men were like fighting away already. And this also showed the restrictions in media, newspaper, like I said before. Governments wanted to manage how the public reviewed, so journalists couldn't just report whatever they want, or so they see every article, photo, headline, and go through official center before it could be published. So anything revealed troop movements, military, or high casualty numbers were just removed, and showing how it was like not bad, positive, you're doing it for your country, instead of showing the harsh reality of the trench warfare. So our next room is going to be about, about the Remembrance Day for the World War I. So what is Remembrance Day? Remembrance Day is like a ceremony, and it's to honor soldiers who fought and died in the war. So people gather around, show respect, listen to speeches of how sacrifices were made for peace. And as now we know, at 11 a.m. on Sunday, closest to Remembrance Day, everyone takes a moment of silence and sings the national anthem. So there is a poem made by a soldier who saw his best friend died. So it says, the poem is written here. And I can't click it. Okay, never mind. So how did it end? It ended due to an armistice. So it happened when in train carriage on November 11, 1918. So Germany was completely alone because all of its alliances had fallen apart, and under huge pressure because they were losing to France already and running out of resources. So they decided it was time to surrender. So they agreed on the 11th hour, on the 11th day of the 11th month, all the fighting would end and stop. So this moment was the beginning of peace of First World War I. You can see over here, this is what the treaty looked like. And when it finally hit the 11th hour of the 11th month, 11th day, you could see everyone celebrating. So right here we can see two people. These two people were the last few people to die right before our war. So on October 15, 1970, George Lawrence Price was drafted under the Military Service Act of 1917, which had become a law on August 29, that he had to join the 210th Infantry Battalion, so the frontiermen of Canada. I'm not going to read it now. So he died on November 11, 1918, just 2 minutes before the Olympics took effect. Pierce was only 25 years old and was shot by a German sniper while helping clear buildings with his unit in a small village in Belgium. So another one here is Edwin Elson. He was the last British soldier to die in World War I. He joined the Royal Irish Lancers, participating in many battles in the war's frontier. Elson was killed by a sniper 90 minutes before the armistice took effect. So his death occurred in a forest near Mons, Belgium at the time of his passing. He was 40 years old. The reason of why he did it is unknown till this day. So our next one is the German Revolution of the Cause, the 1918. So what is that? So this is a revolution. It happened when Germany was reaching its breaking point after years of war. By the late 1980s, it was clear that Germany was losing to the World War I. So, due to the failure of the spring offense and strong Allied attacks, the crushed army's morale, and many soldiers no longer believed they could win. They had a mindset and realized that, oh, there's no way we're winning. At the same time, people at home were suffering due to extreme food shortages, inflation, and poor living conditions. So the anger towards the government grew, especially towards the guy Kaiser, who was blamed for leading the country into a hopeless war. So now the naval immunity at Kiel is the one in late October 19 was one of the key events that led to ending the war. So many soldiers were exhausted, poorly fed, and were frustrated in fighting a war they already knew they lose. So when they ordered the fleet launch a last attack against the British Navy, the soldiers realized it would be a suicide mission meant only to protect the honor of the officers. So due to this, many sailors refused to follow orders, stage protests, and control their ships. So this grew bigger as from sailors it went to workers and then soldiers, and they all joined and forming a council to demand peace for better conditions and political change. So how did this affect and why? Because economic hardships and shortages were the main causes for this, as the German World War I economy was completely done for. The British naval blockade made it almost impossible for Germany to port food, fuel, and raw materials, which led to extreme shortages in everyday life, including for soldiers and many families who struggle on tiny foods and they had to keep rationing, while people wait long lines to just get bread or potatoes, common food that we should all get. So some factories slowed down and everything just went downwards. So thanks to this, there was social unrest, another word, protest. So they just started protesting, and by the final year of the war, many Germans just lost their trust in the government and were pissed at the food shortages, high prices, and cost and bad news from the front people. So major cities like Berlin, Munich, I can't read the rest, were tired of this and started ignoring what the government say, so they joined the civilians in blaming Kaiser and military leaders for Germany problems. So who is Kaiser in the first place? So Kaiser is a man who was controlling everything. So when he realized many citizens believed that he was indifferent to their struggles and more concerned, the government appeared weak. So this strikes rebellion, as such as the Kiel Immunity, demonstrates that those expected to be loyal were beginning to reject his authority. Protests and demonstrations spread across the cities. Oh my god, the same one. Okay, we're gonna ignore that. So, how did this change affect the woman? So, woman changes. So, firstly, women went in the home front, shown in a different previous room. During the World War, women started working in factories on much larger scales because so many men were fighting away with millions of jobs suddenly being empty. Someone had to step front and take over that role. This was never expected them to do before, so they worked in munition factories making bomb bullets and uniforms for soldiers, which was dangerous work because of toxic chemicals and explosion. They also started to drive buses, repaired machines, and worked on farms, and took on engineering technical jobs normally seen as men work. Secondly, due to the fact of the jobs being empty, this led to a political participation of rights. So there was a protest that changed a lot during the early 90s. So beginning before this time, women didn't really have a voice because people thought only men should vote or make decisions. But as women started working more and take bigger roles in society, they feel like they deserve the same rights. So they protest and marched and fought groups to right to vote that led them nowadays that now women and men can vote. So how did this change the roles in family life and home? Is that due to the fact that many men were away for war, women home life changed in a lot of ways. So they had to start to take responsibilities that were already shared in managing household, plus looking after children, plus making their own important decisions that was not common before. So they take extra work like balancing long hours at factories and farms while cooking, cleaning, and caring for loved ones. This like create a lot of pressure and show how capable and strong women are, that also boosted up their protests. So then after that, women in military and war support became extremely important during major wars, as there wasn't enough men to handle every single responsibility, even though society used to think that women didn't belong anywhere in the military. So the pressure of the war basically forced countries to depend on women. And the general social change that led to like norms today is that now, before they were expected to stay home and take care of family, but now since women had to step into jobs like for working in factories, driving ambulances, or helping in the military, they showed that women were as capable as men, not only in home life but also everywhere else. So this made society rethink ideas about gender responsibility and who contributes to the country. Now we talk about the medicine and transportation. So for the medicine part, the transportation of the wounded during the wartime was like very important as saving soldier lives, but also very difficult and dangerous, because when a soldier got injured on the battlefield, the people try to reach them first was usually stretcher bearers who had to run through mud through the trenches, explosion and gunfire just to like report them safely. And it's still 50-50 if it's going to survive, as it was very slow, bumpy, and making the pain even worse. So this also had an effect on future on how we could improve. So the evacuation routes were not any better, because during the wartime, there was followed from the battlefield to get proper medical help, and they were important for survival. So this process normally starts at the front line, where the wounded soldier would be picked up into a small dressing station and then quickly treated, and then follow along specific routes, casualty cleaning stations, we had more doctor and nurses. So then how did the medicine work? Was during wartime, becoming one of the most important is to keep it alive. So field hospitals were set up front in a clothesline, and there was like medical workers use bandages, antiseptic, whatever tools they had on them to make sure bleeding stops, and they can actually still work for the military. So here are some pictures of the casualty clearing stations. So it's one of the most important parts in wartime medical, and mental health are known as shell shock. So this is one of the most misunderstood. This affected many soldiers. At the time, people didn't really understand mental health, so they were judged instead of them able to speak up. So here's one of the common medicines that soldiers brought along with them, iodine. So it was important as it was used to fight infections back then. So antibiotics didn't exist, so they would pour these on small cuts and all. So this one was a wholesome one. This one was about the Christmas truce. So the background of Christmas truce. Oh shit. How to record? Command Shift 5. Bro, I ChatGPT